Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Lessons from Leaders podcast. Today we have Mac on here, and my guest is building something and doing something that most founders wish they had the opportunity to do, which is turning his passion for art into a real business. So, Mac, I'm going to give a quick introduction because it's pretty lengthy. You've done a lot of really cool stuff. So we're going to run down the list. So you're a classical guitarist. You have a Doctor of Musical Arts from USC. You have 4 consecutive Grammy nominations, and most recently for the chamber music category.
Mhm.
So you founded Virtual Guitar Orchestra, which has 350 plus guitarists, and you're in 50 plus countries, and it was archived by the Library of Congress.
Mhm.
Yep. So you took that same obsession with music and you've turned it into a new company called Nodi Inc. So it's a Gen AI based platform where you're turning music practice into video games and using instruments as the game controllers for kids, which is unbelievable, in my opinion. Um, and you went through Techstars in DC in 2023. You won the Innovision EdTech Award 2 months after launch. And ranked number 5 in music education startup in the world by F6S in 2024. So that's a very long list. So would love to give you a second to debrief it and just talk about this journey up to this point and what's brought you here.
Yeah, thank you, Jake, for having me. And it is a pleasure to share a little bit of my story with everyone listening. I will say that uh, probably as any founder of anything, the journey is driven by curiosity. You know, I started with music because I ended up being good at it. I enjoyed the concept of practice and I enjoyed the idea of perfecting emotion by repetition. Um, Ironically, a lot of people start with music or the arts because they are in love with the arts or music. For me, it was the opposite. I actually enjoyed the perfecting part rather than anything else, much like, a famed former Croatian Yugoslav basketball player, Dražen Petrovic, who,
Mm-hmm.
died in a car crash, but was argued to be a rival to Michael Jordan back in the day. He was perfecting his 3-pointers, by staying after the game. Having won the game, he was still practicing his shots. For me, that is something that was equally or similarly so an obsession with everything else. The music career, as I moved to LA, kind of started just very naturally and developed into a worldwide touring endeavor. Then the pandemic put a little bit of a stop on things, so which gave time to other endeavors. I will say that a lot of what I have done thus far has been somewhat or somehow connected to community oriented initiatives, such as like, how can education benefit the development of the youth, or how can we create platforms for people to be heard, or something in that vein. And so all of those things sequentially that happened had something to do with that. But I think this sort of startup attempt, which is Noti, was basically a kind of a cumulative effort or cumulative creative interest from all parts of my work thus far, that sort of ended up being just a venture of totality. A for-profit business with high acceleration potential, novelty technology, patented work, building teams, fundraising, and more so, seeing a granular idea, coming from a piece of paper, a sketch, into real life, and kind of finding product market fit and flying with that. All of that, to me, is just as creative and fun as playing a song on a guitar.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And that it's a very interesting point because a lot of people, I feel like you approach music like athletes approach the perfection, like the analogy you used, where, a lot of people love the openness and the creativity of music. And it feels like you're coming at it from like an athlete's mindset, where it's how can we become the best? What can we actually add and what can we keep doing? And I feel like that's probably fueling the success of everything you're doing in business. Is that right? Is that kind of how
I would
your
think so.
framework is?
Yeah, I mean, I once asked a friend uh, who sort of specializes in this team building type work, and I asked her, in her opinion, what makes a good founder or a good CEO, and she said obsessive behavior, relentlessness, and I can share that. You cannot not think about it. It's like you're building your Frankenstein or something, and you're just like, you just can't let it sit still. You have to be 150, 200% present from the inception through growth and far beyond, with what you have created. I think that is really what is driving this.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like your, obsessive sessions, whatever it were in music, where you're just sitting down, probably saying, "Hey, I'm going to sit here and play this until it's absolutely perfect, and then we
Yeah.
can take it to a show." How how is that manifested in your day to day running this company? Like, what does that obsessive nature look like for you day to day?
Well, on the positive side of things is, maintaining a rather sort of healthy, steady pace where I know that I will wake up in the morning early enough to do my, kind of wellness routine, which is, exercise, or whatever else is needed, and then just power through the day, putting as many hours in as I possibly can, and feeling the sort of the excitement equal at the beginning or at the end of the day, feeling the lows, feeling the highs as well. On the flip side, on the kind of the negative side of things, some sleepless nights where I worry about things going sideways, or thinking of perhaps ways of pivoting if necessary. Those are, I think, pretty standard challenges, and that's why it's important to, if not always, oftentimes ask a founder how they're doing. I think that question actually is relevant, because oftentimes the tempo, the speed of it all is so fast, it's so forward moving that we only stop when it's kind of late. And I'll share an anecdote of this person who will remain nameless, but has been working with us for a while. It's as an advisor, and they are part of the C-level suite of another company, and they had just raised their Series A. And as they were pushing through the fundraise, uh, the moment they closed, this person felt a sharp pain in the stomach, and it ended up being that their intestine ruptured of all the
Mm.
stress. And immediately after concluding the round, signing all the papers into the hospital and into a surgery. So it is a tough journey. So I think wellness is a big important part. We do have to make sure that we ask that question, how one is doing, and assigning appropriate wellness to the daily routine. I think longevity is solidified through that.
Hmm. Do you see it as a marathon, not a sprint? And this is your
It
life's
is for
work.
sure both. It is for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Now, how fast of a sprint, how big of a marathon, that depends a little bit on the virality of the company, I would say. Like if something explodes, then it's a sprint, and then you're looking at a quick exit. Um, if it's a marathon, then persistence and perseverance is key, because you want to see consistent growth, you want to see that sort of potential at the end of the tunnel, but it takes just a little bit longer. So we all go for explosive growth, but some growth is a little bit more steady, and some is a little bit more exponential.
Mm. Right.
Mhm.
And being in the music space for this long, it it seems outside looking in, you have this passion. You've built your life around music. And as you advance, it seems you're looking for problems to solve, but it's always around bringing music into the world in a different way. Is that kind of how you view your mission and everything as you move? Or what does that look like for you?
It is, yeah, it is. It's a great question. It's hard for me to answer this appropriately because um, the way things have unfolded for me thus far have been through music, just simply based on the fact that I understand and know this field. Now, having lived in the sort of the business realm of things for the past few years, I can honestly say that perhaps my next endeavor may not be connected to music directly, maybe indirectly or not even, because other knowledge has been accumulated along the way, right? So I think I think founders always start from the point of view where they feel strongest, right? There has to be one sort of lifeline that they know and they can hold on to, and then the rest kind of comes, right? When we started Noti, I had no idea about raising money for this type of profile of business. I had experience in a nonprofit realm, but that wasn't really applicable. I had no idea about financial modeling and meeting milestones quarterly, monthly. You know, I remember first talks with some of our early advisors using abbreviations that I would Google as they were talking because I just wouldn't know what they meant, you know? And so
Hmm.
all of these things now remain knowledge, kind of that I have, and surely they will morph into something different, moving forward.
Yeah. And what would your advice be to somebody who's maybe coming up in their career? Maybe they're interested in entrepreneurship or being in a leadership position. How have you observed the opportunities around you and decided what to pursue and when it was the right time? Can you talk about that process a little bit?
Yeah, the right time can be defined, in my opinion, by a few factors. Number one, what and where does your level of energy currently lie? Like it is slight bit easier to have endless energy when you're a little bit younger. Then there's this thing called the market opportunity, right? So if you by chance live in a space that is exploding at any given point in time, um, AI is a great example, like Anthropic started as a research project, to my knowledge at least, and now, is one of the more relevant institutions. And then there's experience, right? So a multi-exited founder will have had enough experience to know when to start something and when to finish something. So I would say that those three things probably define the right opportunity. um, when we're young, we just kind of like we just go for it, and whatever happens happens, right? And then it's okay
Hmm.
if we get burnt. It's completely fine. And matter of fact, there's a lot of funds that I meet and founders of funds who claim for themselves that they've been multi-failed founders, right? And then they
Right.
decided to use that expertise to help others along the way. So um, I think a combo of those, passion for sure drives, and persistence drives, and it is okay to fail. Also, I think that's an important point to make. And the one thing that I would probably also consider for those who are looking into anything business is what type of business, right? Because there's also different types of business. Startup business is based on explosive growth, is based on fast-paced decision making and sort of the quickest path to success, whereby the standard type businesses, are based on typically slow growth, reinvesting the immediate profits, and then growing based on those, right? Here, investment catalyzes and catapults our operations faster beyond our means of profit, right? So it is highly unlikely that a startup right away will be profitable. So I think making that decision and be kind of okay with that decision, accepting the responsibility of taking someone else's money to fuel your own productivity is something that a founder will need to decide upon.
Hmm. And really starting with the why, I'm sure, where it's what do I really want, you know,
Mhm.
2,
Mhm.
5, 10, 30 years down the line.
Yep.
How important was that conversation with yourself when you were getting started in all these ventures?
Oh gosh, I was so interested in it. My why was like, why not? Um,
Mm,
that was really it was kind of like a question that I didn't even want to ask myself. I had
yeah.
this idea and I really desperately wanted to fly with it, um and then I remember talking I just by sheer accident I had a common acquaintance in a venture fund out of Seattle. And then even before there was really anything done specifically with Noti, I remember talking to them and saying, "Hey, I had this idea," knowing nothing, truly nothing, and then asking them, "Hey, would you like to work with me on this?" And they kind of laughed and they said, "Well, this is nice and all, but here are the things that you need to do first before we can take you seriously, like at any level." And my answer to that was, why not? Let me do this. Let me try it out. And then I kept trying and trying and trying. Of course, million no's. Here and there a few yeses, and then here we are today. So I think I think the why not is an important part of the drive.
Yeah. Yeah, and for somebody, wanting to make that jump, they have an idea. They maybe even have a little bit of success, a couple case studies. What would you tell them is that baseline of getting to an MVP or getting to where somebody will take you serious? What were those steps for you to build that
So
out?
so the smart way, the smartest way is market research first, right? So the MVP in the truest form, something that's barely functional, but functions well enough to then test beyond your circle of friends. Rather trying to find initial customers, at least a small cohort that can be very honest with you and say this is something that we really need, or need not at all, or maybe like could be a good to have, right? I think one of our advisors early on told me, there's startups or there's ideas that are a must to have, like a pill, Advil, Tylenol, whatnot. And there's startups ideas that are a good to have, like a vitamin, right? And
Right.
so the best part, if you figure it out and your timing is exceptional, then what you have is essentially a must to have, a pill, right? And then that, if you fly with it, is easy to place, is easy to find customers for, and that is what we're all chasing. So that would be one consideration, I think, surely.
Mhm. Right. Right. And just starting with the why not. Like, I feel like, when you're young, you don't wanna end the career with any regrets. Was that a big driver for you when you started to attack the problem?
Probably, yeah. I mean, mm, I think trying things out makes life kind of rich, but it also does tap into personality type. You have to be a little bit of a daredevil and a little bit of kind of an action figure to be okay with that. My parents are certainly not that, and that's perfectly fine. Um, I think down the line, you want to look back and see your life as fulfilled, whatever that means.
Mm, right. And as you were growing up and you were, coming up in Europe, what were some of the big lessons that you took from childhood? Maybe from your parents, maybe from a mentor of yours. Was there anything that you feel has launched you into this success and everything that you've had?
Well, so I before I did music, I did martial arts, basically almost professionally, right? I mean, I traveled the world and was very diligent about it, and sort of that kind of very serious practice, almost meditative approach to things, being very meticulous about how everything is dealt with. That was very helpful. But looking back, though, I mean, I was the same knucklehead back then as I am now. I when I saw something I wanted to go for, it was it was the same for me at age 15 as it is now, right? I mean, I the same lack of fear, so to speak. The only downside is like the older we get, the more we feel it, right? But the approach to life, where my parents were, 20 years ago, telling me, "Hey, chill out a little bit," is exactly the same. They would tell me that at the age of 15 and now later on.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Man, it sounds like you have a background that's full of athletics, music, these things that have just given you a lot of structure. Is
Yeah,
that
I
right? Like a lot of
think
structure.
so. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
sure is important. A little bit of deviation also fine, um,
Hmm.
but it's a wild world out there, and if you want to live it fully, you can totally do that, right? I mean, it's up for grabs.
Yeah. And how is that? Because you come up in all that structure, and it was very similar for myself in athletics, where you're in an environment that's high performance. You got nutritionist, training room, like anything and everything you got. You got that structure. And then to come out into a world where you're starting your own thing and it's wide open.
Hmm.
What's what's been that, I guess, mental framework or how you've approached it, knowing that the world is wide open, coming from a place of maybe more structure? What does that look
No,
like?
no, no particular framework. Truthfully, at least in this case, I just went like a bull with horns through a closed door essentially, and whatever happens happens. I for sure with the next project, next startup, I would use heavily the experience that I've garnered here, and would be much more methodical about every single part of creating this adventure. In this case, it was just like, let's do it, let's learn on the fly, and let's not die. Let's survive and keep growing. Basically, it's been the mantra. And then we were so lucky, the team, that we kept going. And we keep going and growing, and things are looking very positive. So.
Hmm. Yeah. And for you, as you expand and as the team grows and the service grows, what have been those biggest learnings as you build out a team, as you lead more people and do more customer success and things like that? What have been the lessons from expanding?
Well, that things typically take longer than expected. That has been one serious lesson I've learned, especially when it comes to trying to develop a product that actually works. Um, Learning a customer behavior is more challenging than not. That's another lesson. And and all the assumptions on sales cycles that we typically would say, okay, it's going to take this long, it's going to take that long, typically are not accurate. Typically, virality cannot be counted on. It is a sheer accident. Everything else is a very almost pedantic built up, that you have to assume to then follow your milestones. So that's why they say it's good to have a conservative business plan, and then as a counter to it, a very aggressive business plan, and then you kind of like dance between the two. So I
Uh,
think those were the biggest learning curves. Oh, and more so if the product is even a remotely consumer based, that consumers can be nasty and vicious and very direct. If
yeah,
even smallest part of something is not working, the expectation is exceptionally high, and so then the delivery has to be higher than that. And so those were some lessons, hard learned, but I'm glad I learned it.
yeah. And that as you pulled in the team and just started to build everything around you and you found your partners, what was that process like in finding the right people, maybe
Hmm.
who cared a lot about the problem, who cared a lot about what you were solving?
Hmm.
What was it like pulling everybody in?
Um, a lot of sort of tapping in the dark, because again, this was my first tech startup, so I had zero knowledge of like who's who and what is actually quality and non-quality, right? So I was lucky in that my co-founder was a friend from school, and so he had done this sort of like um, I guess, capstone makers lab type situation before. So he had some knowledge, and then that was helpful. But oftentimes we would hire someone, and then um, see that the output is actually not where their promise is, and um, so trying to locate the appropriate team members in this very dynamic realm is actually quite hard, and retenting a team in this dynamic environment that is a startup is also very, very hard, because everyone knows that the pay is just not at the level of the market rate, although market rate nowadays is fluctuating because of the layoffs. But um, so there needs to be a lot of dedication and understanding of what kind of environment this is. And I mean, I'm happy to report that our team has basically 85% retented since the beginning,
Mm,
which is fantastic. But there has been churn on a certain roles that are a little bit more fluid that way. Um, but that has been maybe the biggest source of frustration. But you don't know until you actually start to work with someone.
right,
Mhm.
right. And what's the culture been like? Like building the culture, getting everybody bought into the problem, and even seeing the results. You're in so many schools, you have all these users. What's it like building the culture and getting everybody on the same page?
I think for us, building the culture has relied heavily on the fact that what we're building is almost exceptionally mission driven, meaning that music education is, positive, has a positive influence on the cognitive development of the youth. And it's something that is really sort of impactful. And that maybe from the concept of positive screen time makes the parents be excited about this type of product, or in our case, makes the teachers excited to have a tool that helps them retain students better. So I think building an atmosphere around that, where the team or anyone involved gets excited about that part, almost like a non-profit type of excitement in a for-profit model, would be vastly different than maybe, I don't know, making nails.
Mhm.
It's
Right.
making nails is hardly a mission driven attempt, right? It's a very kind of like standardized business situation. So then, you perhaps would need to build the atmosphere in a different way. But in our case, like, music is exciting, games are exciting, seeing happy children uh, play the product is exciting. See the positive response from the parents is exciting. All of that is exciting. So it's a additional fuel to the general um, kind of vibe that we have, right? And so that part has been relatively easy for us, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And talk to me a little bit about the product where, what does it look like when it gets in the hands of the kids? What's that feeling like where they get the product and they start to
Yeah.
use it?
Uh, so psychologically speaking, what's been fun to see is that the younger beginner music learners, such as kids or younger students, they really identify with the fact that this is a game. So when they say we want to play Noti, they actually what they mean is playing a game. In the parent's eyes, so the purchaser, right, or the teacher's eyes, different type of purchaser, of course, they know it's an education based platform for music practice. There's sort of a sense of general progress for the child or the student. But it's been that kind of duality of the approach that kind of taps a little bit into the extrinsic values, a little bit into the intrinsic values. It's been interesting for us to see. And of course, the best part is when you see folks just generally happy with what they have, and then when they send us like client testimonials, I mean, it's very, very nice and very fulfilling to see.
Yeah. That's the best part, man. That is the best part. Well, as we move forward, man, where can everybody find y'all? Where can, they get access to the product, or if they want to
Yeah,
take it to the next level, what does that
yeah.
look like
Thanks,
for them?
thanks for asking that. So the most easiest way, probably just via our website, which is Notey, Notey.co. There exist all sorts of download links to all sorts of platforms, but otherwise we are on the App Store. We are also on the Google Play Store, available for any type of device. So if anyone's interested, there's a 7-day free trial period, so anyone can tap in and tap out as they please.
Amazing.
Mhm.
Amazing. Everybody's going to be expert musicians in no time.
Very much hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Well, I think you're a testament to, taking what you love and taking your passion and building something and bringing that passion to everybody else. So I think everybody can take a lot of lessons from this and really bring in a lot to their life. So I appreciate you taking the time.
I sure hope so. Yeah. Thanks, Jake, for the invite. I mean, it was a pleasure to share a little bit of what we do and my journey in it all. So hope it's inspirational and that people get something out of it.
Awesome. And everybody be on the lookout. They're coming up.
Yeah.